Hey guys, still here and welcome back to Wargame, where today I have a bit of an unusual sort of replay commentary for you. You see, at some point I was challenged to do a commentary on a single unit, or at least, let's say, the life of a single unit, and then to see if I can make that interesting. So, here goes. Today we're following the AMX-40. This is Elfwyn, and Elfwyn is driving his AMX-40 for us with a 120mm gun. 65% accuracy while still, but as with most of the French guns, their stabilizer leaves a little bit to be desired. Well, up until you hit the Leclerc, that is. Also comes with an autocannon, the F1, and an NF1 machine gun. So we should have plenty of firepower to defend ourselves with, which is going to be critical, because the tank does not have a lot of armor. We've got 12 on the front, 6 on the sides, and that is about it. Which means that any really, any turn worth a damn is gonna hurt this thing pretty bad. Let alone airstrikes and helicopters. Now, a replay commentary. How the fuck do you do that in a first-person or third-person perspective like this? Well, it beats me. So I'm as much experimenting with it as you are. Initially I thought, well, maybe you could turn off the HUD. And sure, I can turn off the HUD. But then you'd just be looking at a tank in the middle of nowhere, sitting in a bush, walking over trees. Well, yeah, sort of. Just driving over trees, doing not much of anything. Of course, in the distance we can see the fireworks going off, but I don't think that this is going to make for a stellar commentary. So let's keep the HUD on, which does also allow me, of course, the view of the minimap. We can see that there's a couple of bad actors coming in. Mi-24 VPs, escorted by an Mi-2 recon. Let's hope they don't get too close. As you can see as well, by this huge triangle on the map, the viewing perspective is really weird, as opposed to what you would normally have, which is this. Anyway, it's a punch bowl map, it's 10v10, and we're just going to be driving along with this AMX-40. As mentioned, it's experimental. It might just completely flunk, it might not be anything interesting to watch, we'll just have to see how it goes. Now, he's pushing forward with his AMX-40, and he is rushing, or mostly being rushed, by a couple of infantry units. Fortunately, he has Mortar 2 AMX-10Ps and Mortar 183s for support, and potentially there was a bit of infantry. Yeah, there's the Panzer Grenadiers with him. Elfwyn is fighting for his life over here, because you don't want the Visitcari to get too close. He's racking up the kills really quick, courtesy of the autocannons as well as the main guns of this tank. Although, while being a NATO tank, they don't have 4 HE, just 3. So you're going to be chewing through infantry a little slower. And as you can see, this tank has to choose between firing its autocannon or its machine gun. It cannot fire both. Or actually, no, I think it's even worse. I think it has to choose between firing the autocannon or the main gun. So in these situations, you really have to micromanage this thing and decide what exactly you want to be shooting and what exactly you want to be hitting it with. So for the moment, he's just going for the main gun, just the CN1 2025. A couple of kills so far. We're following Ares, by the way, if you're keeping up. He's done 440 points, and the game is just beginning. Now he's off to the far edge of the map. This is normally, or actually maybe this is normally how you'd be looking at Punch Bowl. So he's on the far edges, and he's retreating into the hills because now the Mi-25s, or sorry, Mi-24s are showing up. Time for his assisting units to do some actual assisting in the form of this Flak Panzer Gepard. Unfortunately, it is panicked and has run through a good bit of its ammunition supply, so he's going to have to be a little careful with what he shoots next. At the same time, you could argue, well, he scored 440 points. I wouldn't be surprised if the Flak Panzer was instrumental in getting those points. And I think you'd be right. Now, this is one of those moments where Wargame still really looks pretty nice. I did a cinematic on this last week, and it just looks pretty. You have barely any idea what's going on, except that there is an AMX-10 on our left, and apparently there's some sort of napalm cloud in front. Sometimes you can see an airplane fly over, sometimes you can see a jet doing a side run, or a helicopter moving across the battlefield. But other than that, it is really hard to spot what is going on. Oh yes, and of course there is one more thing that you can spot. There's a jet up there. That's smoke screens and mortar fire. Those are really the only things that you can reliably see. Now with his tanks and other units calmed down, he can now push down again from this hill. A couple of AA guns would be very tempting targets. This is a Strop 2 and a Praga. Very easy prey for this tank, which maybe despite not having so much armor does have a good gun on it with good accuracy, but also a good rate of fire. So if you're firing at stuff that just does not have that much armor, the AMX-40 can really quickly take it out. Unfortunately, meanwhile, they have an airstrike. A couple of US Marines, which are up front, might need assistance. That is, if you can get to the mortars fast enough. They probably know exactly where the mortar position is, although I'm not really seeing any sort of attack marker go up, pointing out exactly where the artillery is, or is suspected to be. So we might have to go and look for those. Fortunately, Alban is not alone. Alban has some allies. Here's the Flak Panzer again. He has a Lux right next to him, the Martyr 2, and the AMX-10Ps. So there is no shortage of anti-infantry firepower, and those 100 points that just went up there, that was a command vehicle. Necron surrenders, possibly having been on the receiving end of the assault over here with the tank and various escorts. Maybe he was on the other side, I don't know. That's something that just is very hard to spot and to keep an eye on. Who goes where and who's operating what units when I'm this zoomed in. And normally I don't use this zoom, because of the reasons I just described. It's not really allowing you that strategic overview. So this is more of a third-person wargame commentary, I guess you could call it. And for that reason, I am very interested to see what you guys think of it down below in the comments. Don't worry, it's not going to be like me doing all the replays like this, but I might do the occasional one. And I'll be sure to give it a distinct title so you can see exactly whether it is one of those vids, and whether that is something that you want to watch. 40-point kill there, probably a light anti-air unit. A couple more units, which could be a problem up ahead, in the form of BMP-2s. These things have Concours, and the Concours have 20 AP, which is really bad news for this tank, with its 12 points of frontal armor. One of those missiles hit, he's going to lose almost the entire tank. On top of that, quite literally on top of that, we have an airstrike coming in, and the tank did take a fair bit of damage there, down to 2 hit points. Alban is going to need some repairs. And I think that judging by the impact crater there, it might in fact have been an airstrike. Fortunately, eventually there should be resupplies coming in. Yep, he's spawning in a couple of Jupiters. Now, the rest of his forces. This is the Lux over here. It's fully healed up. It has almost all of... Oh, sorry, it has half of its ammo. We got the Gepard, who's down to 59 rounds and is fortunately being resupplied by the HLVW over there. Martyr 2 almost out of fuel, but with a full contingent of ammo. And we still might need both of these units to keep those helicopters at bay. You could argue that a Martyr 2 is not actually an AA unit. No, it isn't. But that doesn't mean that it cannot do it. It has 1575 meter range against helicopters, really high rate of fire, good HE and AP, so it can go through Heinz very, very easily. Now, the battle at this point is not exactly won yet. Blue has scored 2340, red has scored 1765. So, despite our very limited control or limited overview of the battlefield, we can still see sort of what's going on. Although, I'm curious. This doesn't look great. They got Delta. Jeez, what's the normal orientation of this map? Ah, yes. Here. Normally got the fight between the towns there and here. You got the big stuff in the middle. Jeez, I really have to get my bearings again. Holy crap. Gulf. Sorry, I'm thinking of a completely different map. Yeah, this is the way that I normally look at it. Jeez, that was confusing. Normally, I look at it like this, because for some reason I usually seem to spawn on this end. You got the forest over here, you got the two sectors really close, Echo and Fox. And then over on the right, you got the stretched out zones Delta and Charlie. And over in the middle, you got Bravo. Now, blue started out here, or at least I rather hope, unless they moved all their fobs. And our hero, the tank, has been pushing through the forests over here. Although, to be fair, I thought we were somewhere completely different. I thought we were operating here. And that's exactly what a third-person, really up-close commentary can do for you. Anyway, let's speed it up, get this tank resupplied, and then get it to move out again. Jeez, that was confusing. Okay. As you can see, I'm still trying to get to grips with this new commentary style. And I gotta be honest, I'm not even sure if it's viable. I don't know if this is something that's even worth repeating. Lots of infantry walking by. Look at that. This is potentially what the tank would see. Probably even less. Hello, there's infantry over there. Don't matter. You just see an infantry squad pass by, and you probably wouldn't even be able to tell if they were allies or not. Now he's on the line of the forests, so he should be able to target stuff, provided that we can get a good spot on it. We do see a fob, and that is about all we can see at this point. Now it all starts to make sense why there was so much infantry that was killed off by the AMX and the Martyr. Because you wouldn't really have that if you were operating over there. The range would be far too great for the autocannons to be effective. But now it makes perfect sense. Bit of skirmishing over there in the distance, another Mi-24. What do we have here? We got Panzer Grenadiers killing something worth 5 points. So that's not even a reserve section of infantry, that's something else. Come on, Elbin. You've been resupplied, you've been repaired, you've been rearmed. Let's get going. There you go. 35 points. Next, recon infantry. They're trying to snipe what I think is the US Marines. And in the meanwhile giving their position away and getting heavily hammered by everything. Unfortunately, he did just lose an AMX-10. Subject, or cause of that death, beats me. He just also lost the Flak Panzer Gepard. I think he's losing units over here on the left. Again, Albin probably wouldn't really know, because this is all that Albin could see. Now, Albin has a bit of a problem over here. The SU-22 M4, which decides to fire a missile, and then, Wargame being Wargame, the missile decides at the last possible moment that it has a mid-missile life crisis, and just completely misses the target. Which for Albin is really good news. The jet really flies over at close range, dodges a couple of anti-air missiles, and I have no idea what is happening because I cannot tilt the camera up high enough. At least this tank probably saw a couple of teammates or allies die. He knows that the Marines are still here. But aside from that, we know very little about this area. Short of the enemy having a pretty... Well, I was going to say pretty lethal, but maybe it's not a pretty lethal anti-tank plane. Since it completely fluffed that missile launch, but it might not do that a second time. Maybe second time's the charm, and maybe second time he's actually going to hit, because there it is again. Pedro project, this time getting an evac order, so he's probably not going to hit anything. Flak contour in the distance. If we can erase that one, that should make it easier... Oh, never mind. I think the Marines just took it. That should make it easier for Allied aircraft to operate in this area. Unfortunately, another anti-tank plane's coming in. The MiG-29M, armed with cluster bombs. Unfortunately for the MiG, it doesn't quite have an idea where this tank has been moving. And because of that, the tank manages to completely stay concealed and stay alive. Now, this is what the fight looks like if you turn off the HUD. You got the Marines over here. I know there was an infantry section over there. But I have no idea. Sometimes you have these games where they allow you to use a strategic view and then jump into the first-person viewer and see exactly what the tank sees and control the tank. I think that would make it very interesting for Wargame, but also really complex. And I think at some point one of the Battlefield games tried to do it. Semi-successfully, where it was... What was that called? Was it Commander Mode, I think? Something of that nature, where you were part of a squad, or you could take control of a squad, or you could be an individual soldier, you could be a commander. You could do various things. But I'm not sure if it really ever got off the ground. If they do make something for that for Wargame, I think that would be really interesting. Of course, you wouldn't really have something to do the entire time, because at some point like this, the tank might just be overwatching an area, and you just might be stuck here. Still though, I think we could put it on the wish list for Wargame 4, if there is ever such a thing. Where they make a game, it doesn't even necessarily have to be huge, and by the way, where they make a game where you can quickly jump in and out of units. Where you can decide to either be a tank or a helicopter, or be the overall battlefield commander. Of course, it would have some limitations, because sure enough, you'd be able to control some of the units, but then the rest of the tactics might be left to your AI. Now, AI for Wargame generally means let's throw enough tanks at this area and hope that they crush everything in the meanwhile. I really wouldn't want my units to be commanded like that. So that's something that I would be a little hesitant about. And at the same time, if you have your units and they have orders and they are executing these orders and you get to control any of the units that you like, that could be really interesting. Anyway, the game is starting to wrap up. Despite having seen quite a lot of conflict, Elbyn has survived the entire battle. And this is why I was requesting those hero units, as I call them. Units which survive the entire battle and which rack up a pretty decent number of kills, like a landed helicopter for another 80 points. Now we're not done. He still has a risk to his life in the form of the FJB-40. And the FJB-40 do make an attempt, firing an RPG-7. Fortunately, being heavily suppressed and engaged by the Panzergrenadier and the Marines, and of course Elbyn himself, and Elbyn takes the kill. Another Mi-24P. Let's hope they can take that down on the other side before it becomes a problem over here. There is another Leclerc up here. There's an automatic, but again, I have no idea how far away that automatic is. Now, he's taken a bit of a scenic route, right through the burning forest, for reasons unknown, but the tank so far does not seem to care. Geez, those are some big bushes, taller than the tank. As I was looking at this replay before I was actually doing the commentary on it, I noticed how weird Wargame is about displacing or knocking over trees. Because sometimes a tank would drive in reverse, and trees in front of the tank would fall down. And sometimes your tank just completely clips through the forest, and trees just don't give a shit whether you're driving through them or not. So it's never quite clear what exactly Wargame seems to have in mind for how to use these tanks. And what trees, or not so much how to use tanks in general, but what trees should be interacting with this tank. Look at this. This looks really, really good. Tank moving into a smoke screen. I hope it has infrared, because otherwise it probably has no idea what it's running into. Airstrikes seemingly coming in. No, that's not an airstrike. Well, it's an airstrike of a helicopter variety. Is that the Leclerc? No, that's a Challenger. Oh, this would also make for something interesting. Trying to identify all the units like this. Just quickly skipping from unit to unit and making it a contest. What is this? Motor 2, Leclerc. There's our hero units. That's the Challenger. Is there something else here? No idea. Now, don't worry. Later this week I will have a normal commentary with a normal top-down view to see exactly what's going on. and just doing an overall commentary on what's happening on the entire battlefield, instead of just what one tank can see. You do see that shed, right? You don't care about the shed. About the other shed? You don't care about the other shed. Alright, that makes sense. And yeah, there we go. These trees are just miraculously falling over. This tank is somehow using the force to knock down trees, even if it's not directly interacting with them. Let's see if it does the same thing here. Yep. He was driving through here, and a tank somewhere a couple meters to his left actually went down. Here. Trees all over the place. There we go. That's another one. Was not interacted with. This one was definitely interacted with, but just didn't give a shit. Ah, Wargame can be so weird. Alright, kills for our AMX-40. La Praga, transports, 2 command units, an Mi-24P, and an FJB in the high levels of kills, and then a couple of transports. Alright, and so concludes the hero level commentary, I guess. Was this an exceptional hero unit? Probably not, because if you have a heavy tank, I imagine it could have done far more damage. Same for transports. And I have had other people send in replays. The thing with the replays is that sometimes it's an infantry squad. And I can make quite a few things relatively interesting, but an infantry squad walking for 15 minutes, trying to get back to a fob and then go back to the battle is not one of them. So I hope that at least this was entertaining, interesting to watch, and I don't know. Let me know down below in the comments what you thought of it. Again, next video for Wargame will be a standard one. So in case you really hated this one, you're probably no longer watching, but in case you still are, don't worry, normal service will be resumed later this week. If you did enjoy it and you like my content overall, then please become a Patreon for the channel. I am actually really close to getting enough of a Patreon and YouTube supporting going to do this full time. I'm getting really, really close. So if you guys can help me out with that, that would be awesome. And it doesn't need to be donating $50 a month. Just $5, which you probably won't even notice, that really helps me out because I have the numbers for it. Anyway, that's all for today. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I will catch you guys soon for another one.